The Honorable Yair Lapid, Foreign Minister of the State of Israel, and Federal Chancellor Karl Nehammer, I am honored to invite you to sign our guest book in the name of all who have joined us here today. Please. I kindly ask, in the order of their statements, Governor of Upper Austria, Thomas Stelzer, Federal Minister of Interior, Gerhard Karner, Federal Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alexander Schallenberg, Federal Chancellor Karl Nehammer, and the Honorable Yair Lapid, Foreign Minister of the State of Israel, for their commemoration statements.
Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, dear Mr. Chancellor, dear Ministers Schallenberg and Karner, Excellency Mr. Ambassador, President Deutsch, dear friend and Member of Parliament Engelberg, and especially our special guest of honor, dear Minister of Foreign Affairs Lapid. It's a great honor to welcome you here in Upper Austria, even at this place. A place of horror and death for so many, especially Jews. A place of grief and deep mourning for so many families and friends of the victims of here. And of course, a place which shows the darkest chapter of the history of our country. But I think it's an important and very strong sign. Yes, even more of this. It's an important statement that you are here, that we can meet here the highest representatives of Israel and our Republic of Austria to show our relationship, our friendship, and to show our strong will that we will do anything we can that this what happened here will never happen again, and that we build a better society and a better future. Unfortunately, Upper Austria is nearly full of places like this where the Nazi terror took place. We talked about Ebensee, it's Ternberg, it's Hartheim, it's Mauthausen. Of course, we take these places to commemorate, but we also take these places to show them, especially to young people, to learn and to teach them and us that learning doesn't mean only knowing the history, but learning means also to be able to act when it's necessary, to act if there is any kind of anti-Semitism or if there is any kind of enemy against our democracy or against races, that we act day by day, that nothing can happen like it happened here in this only 70 years ago. You know, you talked about Linz. I was born in Linz. I studied in Linz. It's only a few minutes away from here, and it wasn't sometimes this took place here. It was only just a generation ago. So it's very important that we show our commemoration together. Excellency, dear Minister, I'd like to say something too. I talked with the ambassador. Upper Austria has a special relationship with Israel because every year a delegation and I, if Corona lets us, visit Israel. We visit those who had the chance and luck to get out of Austria before Nazi took control. We meet them and their families to show that we need this relationship and to show we have a friendship even nowadays. So once again, welcome and many thanks for your important visit here in Upper Austria.
Dear Minister Lapid, sehr geehrter Bundeskanzler, Herr Außenminister, Herr Landeshauptmann, Herr Präsident, Herr Botschafter, Herr Abgeordneter, liebe Barbara Glück, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, Excellencies, Ladies and Gentlemen. Today is the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. In memory of the countless victims of the Holocaust, we came together, laid down white roses, and visited places of incredible suffering. This was very touching. The Mauthausen Memorial, where we met today, is the central place in Austria for raising historic and political awareness about the horrible crimes that were committed. In the concentration camp system Mauthausen, more than 90,000 people were murdered, among them many thousand Jewish citizens. Aware of the great historical responsibility, I want to ensure, as the responsible minister for the Mauthausen Memorial, but also as a Democrat and human, I ensure that the memorial will be able to continue to fulfill its important mission of remembering and education. The Mauthausen Memorial offers education programs to preserve the knowledge about the Nazi crimes. Furthermore, its education programs address root causes of such crimes like anti-Semitism and racism and sensitize against them. This work is a main factor in fulfilling the obligation, never forget for never again. Thank you.
Excellencies, dear Yair, colleagues. I remember when we talked over the phone last summer and this idea arose, and that we are standing here today, side by side with you, Yair, is an extremely touching moment, a very special moment. I believe even in the history of Austria. This is a very personal moment for you, but it has also a political dimension. I'm extremely thankful also to the Chancellor that is here today, which makes it a very special event. This is a place where it's a memorial for those who fell victim to the Nazi system, where they were deprived and robbed of their freedom, their possessions, their names, their identities. And for far too long, yes, for far too long, the Republic of Austria denied its historical responsibility. But now we assume it. Now we actively work on it. And we are very much aware that this is not something which is directed towards the past. No, it is something which is a task for the future. Not only in Austria, in Europe, globally. And it's very clear that it also includes a very special relationship, if I may say, between our two people and our two countries. Only when Jews around the world can live safely and in freedom, can never forget, become to never again. And I have to say, your visit today is a very strong gesture. A strong gesture that we are not looking towards the past, but into the future. Outside, it might be cold, but our hearts are warm. Thank you again for honoring us today.
Dear Mr. Foreign Minister, Interior Minister, Governor, ladies and gentlemen, I was recently in Israel in another role. And there I visited the Yad Vashem Memorial. Just like here in Mauthausen, it is a place of remembrance and commemoration. And both are, above all, places where the millions of people who were killed by the National Socialists have given back their names. And you know, to give back the names, I think, is the real victory about the Nazis. They were anonymized at the time, but they get their identity back. And that is our responsibility today. We have never forget their names. And I think this is the most important thing. We have to tell the stories. Like also with the Shoah wall of names, for example, now in Vienna. We have to see the names and we have to tell the stories, and we will never forget. And I also met the alternate prime minister in the future, Lapid, in Israel. And Yair, you told me about your grandfather and his personal story. And today, we talked about that. His grandfather was one of those who were given a number here in Mauthausen and cruelly murdered. Just like around 90,000 people who were killed in the Mauthausen concentration camp and its subcamps from August 1938 to May 1945. The fact is, we cannot undo what has happened, but I think we can do two things. First of all, apologize. Apologize for the injustice committed by Austrian perpetrators, and we can ensure that the memory of the victims of the Shoah lives forever. Dear Yair, I apologize on behalf of the Republic of Austria for the crimes committed here. I apologize that your grandfather was murdered here. Ladies and gentlemen, today I can promise that the Austrian federal government will do everything to fight against anti-Semitism. Through the National Strategy Against Anti-Semitism, the law to safeguard the Austrian Jewish cultural heritage, but also through the Shoah Wall of Names Memorial now in Vienna, because we give people back their names and their personalities so they can live forever. As a federal chancellor of the Republic of Austria, I promise the Jewish people in Austria that I will do everything to promote Jewish life in Austria. The President and I, we share the same dream that Jewish life in Austria can be safe, without fear. And we try to improve Jewish life in Austria with the new citizenship for descendants of people persecuted by the Nazis, which I was also able to hand over to some new Austrians when I was in Israel. Hopefully, also a growing Jewish community again. Thank you very much that you are here. You see these two flags? We will stand together, not only now, also in the future.
Thank you. Dear Excellency Chancellor Karl, Ministers, Governor, President Oscar, where is he? Over there. Barbara Gluck, my friend, dear Director, ladies and gentlemen. Most people don't know the exact point at which they transitioned from child to adult. But my father did. He knew. He became an adult at age 12 in one night, between the 18th and the 19th of March 1944. At 6 in the morning, Dad was still a child. He slept in a large bed alongside his father, my grandfather, under the big blanket. And my grandfather was a fat man, and his warm breath were a sane, soothing metronome in a world which had gone mad. At exactly 6 o'clock in the morning, Dad heard his grandma, Hermina. She said, "Ja, bitte, bitte," to someone in German. And then the bedroom door opened, and Bella, she said to my grandfather, "There's a German soldier at the door who wants to see you." The soldier didn't wait. He followed her into the bedroom holding a rifle in a greenish-gray uniform which has the letters SS in the corner of his collar. And remarkably kind, he said, "Dr. Lampel, please get dressed." And my grandfather rose and get dressed. The bag, he told his mother, my great-grandmother, and she left and returned with the bag. There was no need to pack. Since the start of the war, every Jew in Europe had a bag ready to go. My great-grandmother took a step or two towards the blonde soldier with his bayonet, and when she got really close to him, she grabbed the headrest and slowly, as old people do, got down on her knees. And the German soldier was silent, and she hugged his knees, clinging to his polished boots. And she lifted her head, searching out his blue eyes, and she said, "Sir, don't forget you have a mother too, waiting for you at home." And then she added, "God bless you." The German's face contoured for a moment, and then he nodded his head at my grandfather, "It's time." And my grandfather bent down and lifted the blanket off my dad, and Dad cried. And he hugged my dad and said the words which in one night turned my father into a grown man. "My child," he said, "either I see you again alive or not." And he never saw him again. My grandfather was sent to Auschwitz, and after that he was sent here to Mauthausen. When he arrived here, he was no longer a dad, he was no longer fat. He was no longer a person. He was a number. The Nazis went to great length to number the prisoners. My grandfather, like everyone who came to Auschwitz, had also a number tattooed on his arm. The archives were organized, tens of thousands of notebooks with careful documentation of prisoners. They did this because it allowed them to tell themselves, this isn't murder, it's statistics. That they weren't killing people who did them no harm, but rather deleting numbers from a notebook. I came here today to remind the world that Bela Lampel was not a number. He was my grandfather. He loved his beautiful wife. He went to football matches with his child. He loved to have an omelette at the coffee stop next to his home. He never wronged anyone. He wasn't an important man. He didn't hate anyone. He was simply Jewish. So they took him in the middle of the night and sent him from camp to camp until he arrived here. And when he arrived here, the Nazis already knew that they had lost the war. The mighty machine that was the German army had collapsed already. They needed every soldier, every slice of bread, every rifle, and yet they continued to kill Jews up until the very last moment. According to the records Barbara showed me here in Mauthausen, my grandfather died in April 1945. A month later, on the 9th of May, Nazi Germany surrendered. That was the last significant thing the Nazis did, killing my grandfather. But dying was not the last significant thing that he did, because my grandfather did one other thing, even if he did it after his death. He sent me here today. Grandpa Bela, a quiet man whose family nickname was Smart Bela or Bela the Wise, sent me here today to say on his behalf that the Jews have not surrendered. They've established a strong, free, and proud Jewish state. And they sent his grandson to represent him here today. The Nazis thought they were the future and the Jews would be something you only find in a museum. Instead, the Jewish state is the future, and Mauthausen is a museum. Rest in peace, grandfather. You won. Thank you.
Honestly, it is hard to continue, and even more it is hard to try to close this ceremony. I would like to thank the Honorable Yair Lapid, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Israel, for his visit to the Mauthausen Memorial. Personally, I express my deep gratitude to the grandson of Bela Lampel, to you, Yair, sharing your personal family's story with us. And I promise you, we take care of him. We take care of his story, and we take care of your family story. And once you come back, and you will come back, so this is not an invitation, this is an obligation, please. We will talk again about your story and about how it is to bring it to the next generation. And that is what the Chancellor said, this is our obligation to tell the story. Thank you, Federal Chancellor Karl Nehammer, for your strong words. Thank you, Minister Schallenberg. Thank you, Minister Karner, and Governor of Austria, Thomas Stelzer, to come here. All our distinguished guests, our friends of Israel, President of the Jewish community, Member of Parliament Martin Engelberg, everybody come here, Mr. Ambassador, and my team, for this dignified act of remembrance today on the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I would like to finish with the following message from Abba Levit, survivor of the Mauthausen concentration camp, who passed away in 2020. Remember that you are human beings. That is the most important thing. Be human.